So we've been looking at the narrative in wargaming, this idea of playing with miniatures and terrain, an engaging story, an awesome opponent, literally building that narrative on the table. Playing a war game with miniatures and details, engaging your sight, picking up the dice in that moment, and feeling the call to glory, feeling those possibilities on there. So through this, we want to do our best. We're going to try and win. We're going to try and leverage some good tactics here, but we want our opponent, our friend, other players to have a good time, to help build those memories on there. What about, depending on the mission and depending on the gaming system that you play, how do you guys deal with this idea of a mulligan? Where if you're starting out with a random number of assets, or if you're starting out with a random start to the game, if your opponent pulls something that really works against them or doesn't add to the narrative of the game, do you let them do it over again? An example might be if you're playing a war game where you randomly draw some power cards. So the idea is it's random enough. You draw a couple of cards. You're going to have some diversity in there. You're going to have some randomness that you have to adapt to. But you'll get some interesting powers. You don't really know what you're going to start with. And tactically, you will have to adapt that to the situation. Another great example would be years ago when Games Workshop introduced this idea of warlord traits for each army. And you had to roll randomly on the table to see what you got. Some were okay, some were really good, and some just you never used. They made absolutely no sense whatsoever on there. So in exploring that, with your wargaming system, if your opponent, with that random start to some aspect of their army, if they draw stuff that's not good, do you let them have a do-over? My thought on that is in playing games like this, and it extends to board games too, if you have a starting hand, you draw it randomly, you don't tell me what it is, you don't reveal it, you make a decision. Do you want to keep it, or do you want to redraw? The challenge is if you redraw 100%, no matter what you get, fair has to be fair, you're stuck with it. You got to deal with it. So there's a little bit of loss mitigation in there, random mitigation. You'll get something. If it's really that bad, you draw again. But then you're stuck. And the reason why I feel like this, even if I'm trying to play competitive, is who wants to invest? I mean, you've invested all this time in building, painting, collecting, ready to go. You want to be motivated for the game. I don't want you to play a game where you're already like, I'm just not feeling it, because just this randomness has totally destroyed any possibility in the game for me, or it's not going to make it possible for me to try and pull off some good tactics. I want you to pull off good tactics. I want you to be challenged in there. So I think that's a good part of wargaming etiquette. Your thoughts? I will say the only place that line has to be absolute, adamantium, just absolute in a tournament setting where there's multiple people playing for a spot at the top, then it has to be a set rule. Whether that's you draw and you get what you get, or you get to draw and redo a hand once, for the start of the game. But the rule does have to apply concrete absolutely to everyone.